Hey, Westside, this is Pastor Ralph, and I have the opportunity to talk to you about our reopening plans. I want to begin, though, with a call that comes to us from the Apostle Paul in Romans 14. I believe that this call captures a way of being the church together that is really crucial for us as we are in the midst of this global crisis. Paul in Romans 14 was giving specific advice to them on the issue of food, but really it was about how to exercise their freedom. And he distinguished between those whose faith were strong and those whose faith were weak. And his call was to those who were strong, not to use their strength to become a stumbling block to those whose faith were weak. Rather, he was calling people who were strong to be willing to make personal sacrifice for others, limiting our freedom in order to help others from stumbling and being hurt. For us, right now, the issue is not food, but it is contracting COVID-19. For some of us, we are tired of the lockdown and we are ready to go back to work, go back to normal. For others, we are concerned because some of us are in high-risk categories. We're concerned because we just have the sense of caution that this is a global pandemic. We don't want to overwhelm the healthcare system. And we have concern because we want to follow the guidelines so that we can move through the state's phases so that people can go back to work. This pandemic, unfortunately, has become a polarizing issue in our society. We recognize that there are people who are all on all sides of the issues. There is a lot of well-intended people. There are a lot of different concerns to be voiced in all of these things. There are some where we're not ready to go back to normal until a vaccine can be found. And for others, well, we're ready to open up and get back to work and we'll be willing to face the risks. But I want to remind us that for the church, this is not so much a political issue. This is about the call that Jesus has for us to be his church. Whatever we are personally ready to do, in this we aren't just to think of ourselves, but we're to think of the whole church, and we're also supposed to think about our community and the witness to our community. My desire is that we would give a witness, that we would show the world that we're willing to lay down and to make personal sacrifice of some of our wants and desires for what we believe is truly in the welfare of everyone. This is not an issue of the government getting in the way of us being able to worship. There are a lot of people who are involved in this, but we have been blessed that we have the Spirit of God and we have the ability to be able to do the online worship so that while it's not ideal, we are still finding ways that we can worship together, both on Sunday morning. And then I want to remind you of something else Paul says in Romans. Worship isn't just something we do once a week, but it is a way of life. Offer your bodies as living sacrifices, Paul calls us. This is your true and authentic worship. And it's what we do every day by living a life where we willingly live through sacrificial love, not considering just our own needs, but the needs of others. And this leads to the call that Paul has for us in Romans 14. Make every effort to do whatever leads to peace and mutual edification. And so the leadership of the church, we are calling the whole congregation, let us go the way of sacrificial love. Yes, it's hard, and I know that people want to be getting back, but we are going to give a witness to the world that says we love you and we're willing to make personal sacrifice so that we can do the very best for one another. And so as we're looking at our reopening plan, there are four basic principles that has guided the task force that Session appointed, as well as the session itself in making our decisions about how we plan to reopen. First and most important is living faithfully to Jesus Christ. It's his mission. We're going to do it in his way. And so, of course, we're going to live through sacrificial love, wanting the best for people, even if it comes at personal cost to ourselves. Second, we are concerned about the health and safety of our congregation, of our community, and of our staff. Third, we believe that we're called as a church to respect governmental powers. It's one thing when the government is actually getting in the way of us worshiping God, but that's not what's happening. And so as far as that we're able, we trust in God's providence. And so we have both the federal and state governments and guidelines. And so we are seeking to do a plan of reopening that respects our governmental powers. Informed decision-making. The session has put together a task force, 2 staff members, 5 elders, 3 healthcare professionals, and really have tasked these people to become experts or at least well-informed about all of these issues. It is a wonderful group of people, and they are working and will be monitoring throughout how we're doing, what the guidelines are, what the state requires, what the county requires. As new information comes, we'll look at our plan, we'll follow the guidelines. The session has authorized them to implement this plan. And as we get new information, we'll keep session informed, and we will also keep you informed. We have a basic 4-fold plan of reopening, which is modeling the state's 4-fold plan. But there is a difference. The state will determine when our county moves from phase 1 to phase 2, and from phase 2 to phase 3, and from phase 3 to phase 4. And our reopening plan models that so that when the state says, okay, your county is now in phase 2, that means that we will be getting everything in place so that we can move into phase 2. We won't move into phase 2 automatically with the county. It will be based upon the task force guidance that session has authorized. We've got all of our ducks in a row. Here are the plans. They're in place. We are now ready to live into our witness and to live into the safety that we want to do. And so we will move forward. In the communication that's sent to you, there is a detailed list of all of the major areas within the church of what's going to happen when, and I'll leave it for you to look at that detailed list. But kind of the big picture is that we are going to continue the online worship and our large gatherings through phases 1, 2, and 3 as being online. We're not going to plan on any large gatherings in the church building where we're inviting the whole congregation to come until phase 4. In phase 2 and 3, and even in phase 1 for youth ministry, because of the updated guidelines, we are going to be doing some small things that'll allow different groups of people to meet at different phases. The first time where we'll really try to invite at least having 50 members of the church gather for some sort of a service will be in phase 3. It'll not be a Sunday morning service. It'll be a service intended more for fellowship, and so that people who have been severely isolated can have that gift of saying, okay, it's not too far away. I'll at least be able to see some of my church family. But when we implement these things, beginning in phase 1, it means that there's going to be new practices to learn. We're going to do symptom checking. We're going to have a sign when you enter into the building, and it's going to say stop. And it will, and if there are symptoms that you've had, or if you've been in contact with people, then you'll be asked to leave. And then there are mitigation practices. The expectation is people are going to be wearing masks. We're going to be practicing social distancing. We're going to wash our hands. We're going to keep a log of people when they come. That way, if somebody does contract the illness, then we can report to people, okay, this happened on this date, you were here, you may want to get tested. This four-phased approach is trying to balance together the desire that we have to be able to be together face-to-face, as well as the safety concerns and risks of spreading this, especially to our high-risk people. As we move through these phases, it's going to help us learn what we need to do when we get to the place where really in phase 4, we will begin to have in-person worship services. There may be new information coming from the state in phases 3 and 4 that may modify this communication to you. But at this point, we're not so much trying to predict as we're trying to plan. And we have put together a plan for you that is both hopeful and safe. There are going to be some things that we're going to be able to do. We're going to encourage everybody to get into life groups. We know that we need connection together. And if you're not in a life group, many life groups are already meeting via Zoom or other online tools. We're going to have smaller ways in which we can approach special discipleship services, especially for our youth and even 4th and 5th graders. When we get into phase 3, we'll be doing some things as far as for adults. Most everything is going to have to wait till phase 4. And this is really when we look at all the limitations and what it means. Most of what we can do will have to wait till then. But we will continue to monitor. We will continue to look. We are looking forward to those opportunities when we can meet face to face. It is amazing how quickly time goes by. The days can be long, but you start putting those days together, and it just seems like a couple days ago that this all started. But it's been months. We know that this isolation has been difficult for all. And for some among us, it has been especially devastating. We are looking forward to those times that we can get back together. But until then, we want to continue to help one another. And we want to encourage you, if you are really hurting, let us know. Reach out to your church family. We want to help. When we get into phase 2, it is possible, if people are comfortable, to have in-home meetings of up to 6 people for services, and this would include pastoral care visits. And so let us know how you're doing. We hope that this information is helpful. We hope that this paints a picture. We have a plan. We're looking forward to that time that we can meet together in person. We are promoting a witness that says that we care and that we are going to be safe. We're going to do best practices, and that we want to lift up and build up one another. And so we are going to continue to worship. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to learn together. Thankfully, most of these things can be done online. It may not be the best way to do it, but in this time of crisis, when we are dealing with a pandemic, it seems like the best practices are to do the social distancing, because people need to get back to work. People need to be able to go and to see their doctors, and in those meetings with their doctors, the typical things happen. Cancer screenings get done. There are a whole bunch of things that we want to do so that we can move through the state's phases and we can reopen. And so we have a part to play. And our part is to really lead the way in best practices. I want to end with the Apostle Paul's own encouragement to the Christians in Rome. May the God who gives endurance and encouragement, may he give you, and here he's speaking to all of us, one mind, that we may glorify God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. Someday, we are going to be able to do this all in person again. But until then, we're going to find all the ways that we can do this online and as we move through the phases in person. And so may the Lord give you peace and hope in these difficult times. Thank you, and God bless.